roads are very important in Nigeria because it's a huge country and most people don't have the means of using planes to move from one area to the other. So most people are on the road every day, every other day. And the first problem is how to fill your tank. So I know someone that died queuing up for petrol. He stayed 3 days under the sun in the car, queuing up because petrol was in shortage and there was black market. So you queue up, and then sometimes maybe there is only one car before you, and they say, well, sorry, no more petrol, and then you go home. As for us, wise ours, we just parked our cars and forgot about it, because that's the best way and healthy way to deal with the situation. But normally I used to travel by public transport. And when I traveled alone, I only traveled for the ministry, because I belonged to a ministry that was traveling a lot for ministering and outreaches. So when you come to the car park, the first problem is how to find a vehicle that is likely to move soon. There were only either 4, 5-seaters or 7-seaters. And when you come, you have to look first how many people are already there, because when you buy your ticket, you enter and you don't know how long it will take before the car takes off, because it has to be filled. And one day I came to the car park and people were shouting, Onisha, Onisha, Lagos, Lagos, and whatever. And I chose my destination, and then I looked at the cars, and there was one that had already 3 people there. So it was hopeful. So I paid for the trip and then sat down. And within 5 minutes, these 3 people left. And I was now the only traveler. What had happened is, the secret. These people had been paid as figurants, pretending to travel to attract customers to that car. So as soon as another person came and we were 2, or I was just alone, and they thought that my presence will attract others, they just left, because they were not traveling at all. Now, when you travel, all kinds of things happen. At the time, there was only one road that was later called the Old Road, going from Nsukka to the main motorway that was leading to Enugu, and so on to Onitsha. And then that was going up and down and up and down, and it was like what people in France call Russian mountains. So what happened is the drivers were using that configuration to save on petrol. So when you are on a going down slope, then they will just switch off the engine and the car will roll free. And then when you come to the end and you start climbing, then they will put back the engine, and then you climb. When you reach the top, then you switch off the engine and vroom, the car will go down again. That was a way of saving. Another interest of the old road, when eventually the big new motorway came about, was to escape the police. Because sometimes the car would not be in order, it would be a bit rickety, and so they chose the old road so that they have peace. And one day it was raining, as they call it in English, cats and dogs. It was raining heavily. And the driver continued on his way. And at a point, people, what was interesting was nobody was saying anything. Then I was concerned. And I said, can't you put your wipers? There was a silence. Then the rest of the passengers started the chorus. Yes, your wipers. Then there was a silence. And then the driver in slow, low voice said, they're not working. And the windows on the doors were open. And normally if you want to close the window, you ask for the thing that turns the window up or down, because at that time it was done with hand. And so you ask for it and you manipulate it and the window closes. But we found out on another trip like that. It was raining again and there was no way you could close those windows. They were just, it was a 404 and they have that kind of windows that, were just sunk into the door. So what people did next was to take up their big umbrellas and then put the umbrella against the window to protect all of us from rain. Things that happened sometimes also were, lack of brakes. The brakes were not working. So in that case, the vehicle would be very, very careful with the speed. Another time I traveled, it was a minibus, and the rest of the people were locals. And I was a local with a difference, obviously. And then we traveled, and there was a problem with the main road. A lorry had passed by and sunk into the road because the tarred road had given way. So there was a big hole in the middle with half of the lorry sunk into it. So we were obliged to take a diversion. And we came to a point where it was an untarred road and there was a big, huge, like a lake full of water. And so the driver said, well, I can't cross that with all of you inside. Everybody get out. And people were jumping out. And I thought about it and said, how can I do that? My shoes will be wet. And so I protested. I said, no, I can't. And the driver looked at me, took pity and said, okay, you stay. And the rest were just say, hey, what, why? They wanted me to get out too. And the interesting part of this was that, you see, they didn't make a difference between I and them. They were just seeing as I'm exactly the same as them, and they didn't understand why I got favored treatment. But it happened, and then eventually they all came back on the trip. Usually when I go to a car park in Enugu or another big town, vendors will come and sell you boiled eggs and other delicious necessities. And I used to buy and bargain, and I was quite comfortable with that. It was nice. The only problem I had one day was that I was not in the car park. It was in Enugu main roads. And I wanted to enter one of these minibuses. And so I was queuing up. The minibus arrived, and there was a crowd wanting to enter, and the crowd was bigger than the bus. So what they did, because I was very tiny, I was 42 kg, I was very, slim and all, so they just pushed me easily against the back of the vehicle and held me there, and everybody entered. And when the bus was full, they released me, and obviously I didn't enter. It was interesting, but I loved traveling with people. We had a nice relationship. Everybody enjoyed the trip together. And one additional bonus in Nigeria was that you could say anything on the bus, or on the minibus, or even in the cars, in the public transports. So I used to preach. As soon as we are out of town, I would just say, I'm glad to tell you that I'm an ambassador for the King of Kings, and he wants you to have a relationship with him. And I'll talk, and everybody would listen. And some people, invariably, they were Christians on the trip, and they would say, Amen, Amen. They would be happy, you know. So it was really, really a nice experience.